Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Governing Board Workshop to order on April 9th. I would like to, everybody, if you're able to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. For the record, there is an establishment of a quorum. All directors are here and present. And I thank them all for being here, first off. Approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the workshop minutes of March 5th? Hearing none, they will stand as posted. Thank you. Under new business, we have a laundry list of things up here. First thing up here.
George?
Oh, excuse me? Yes, Sharon.
I have this actually under the, let me just look it up and figure out which one it is. It's the Design and Art meeting. The Design and Art Design Committee meeting, which is 303. I wish to amend I can't change the vote, but I can add an amendment, which I printed out for you.
Sharon, I saw that. The question that I want to ask is this an amendment to the Governing Board Workshop minutes or the Governing Board meeting minutes?
It was the meeting that Sue made the presentation at.
Okay, that was the regular Governing Board session? So. Okay, that would be on our next one. We're approving the minutes of the Governing Board Workshop.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we can have that revised at that point. Not a problem. Thank you. Once again, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes for the workshop? Hearing none, they'll stand as posted. Thank you very much. Next thing on our agenda, because it's a new year, is officer candidate declarations. We give the opportunity for anybody to be seeking the presidency, the vice presidency, the secretary, the treasurer spot to make a very brief declaration that they would like to have it or not. It is not official that next time when we have our voting, they can, they can be nominated and seconded at that point. And that's it. Around the room, are there any declarations that are going to be made? Over here. Roberta Davidson is first.
I'd like to nominate myself for secretary.
There's no nominations today. It's just
okay.
Say that you would
I intend to run for secretary.
Oh, thank you very much, Roberta. Lou, did you have your hand up down there?
I did. I would like to throw my hat in the ring for vice president.
Very good, Lou. Thank you very much. I saw Donna Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to throw my hat into the ring for vice president.
I'd like to know how many good hats I'm going to get at the end of this thing. That's what I would like to have. Sizes 7 3/4, please. Ann Brown. Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
Yes, I am declaring for treasurer for next year.
Is that like, does anybody else really want to be treasurer? I see a lot of clubs are present here. Isn't that the most thankless job there is in the club? There you go. Sue?
I'd like to declare my intention to seek the election for the position of president of the governing board for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Thank you. Bob, any question? Or you hide in anonymity?
That's right.
The other thing is we also have 2 directors-elect that are out there, and they're also part of this. Yes, Ann, you
Are we still?
Sure, you can.
I would like to nominate Lisa Vines for vice president, or secretary, I'm sorry.
Well, there's no nominations today.
Okay.
Lisa, are you declaring that you would like to run for that spot?
Yes.
Ah, very good. Thank you. Harry, are you going to be like me and hope to live in anonymity? I knew that was a beautiful thing. Okay, so folks, what this means is that our next governing board meeting, there'll be a special session where Jim Young and myself will extradite ourselves from the board since our terms are up, and they will select with the directors that are seated and the directors-elect will select the new executive officers of the corporation, and that's slightly different than a director. That's all.
George, I'd like to
Yes.
let you know that I'm just running.
Yeah, I know that, Jim, and it's there's only one problem. I see you have a little help there to run. I'll get you out the door before you.
I run slow.
Thank you so much. Now we get into the things. Thank you all for decorations, and I have to say, on a personal note, it is absolutely exciting to know that we have a lot of people who want to assume the leadership roles for this community, and it's one of the great things to serve, and they're volunteers, and they deserve the highest praise for wanting to be in those positions, because I tell you, it's a lot of fun. Next thing up, we have a COVID mask mandate discussion. General Manager, I see you got up there, but I'd like to just say we got an email from the state legislature the other day, and Katie forwarded it to us. And thank you, Katie, for keeping us abreast on it about following the mandate. It was passed at the legislature, signed by the governor, that if we follow the COVID outlines specified by the government, we have no liability whatsoever on it. And it's a good thing that we follow the protocols as such. Bill, go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I did remove my mask. I'm a card-carrying, two-vaccine kind of person, so all good there, and I hope you all are following the rules as well and trying to stay as safe as you can. Last week I was on vacation, enjoying myself up on Mount Rainier. When I came back, I realized the governor had issued an executive order and a couple of rules had changed since I had been gone. Came back, and it almost appears like summer has found Arizona as well, too. But as we sit here today, an executive order was released by our governor talking about masks and those types of things. I will go back and say that for the better part of a year and a couple of months, we have been following the Arizona Department of Health, local authorities as well, as far as this COVID virus has been going, trying to do as best we can managing these facilities under the rules, regulations, and recommendations provided by the state. Again, a little over a year has gone by. I think we're doing very, very well. I tip my hat to all of you, and the fact remains that, you know, within this zip code, within Sun City West, I think everybody has really done a very, very good job in adhering to a lot of the safety recommendations being proposed and mandated by the state. So moving forward, these are the recommendations now coming out of the CDC as well as the Arizona Department of Health when it comes to gymnasiums and fitness providers and those types of things. And that's really our big congregation points as well as local clubs and that type of thing. But these are the things now within their recommended guidelines that we are following, right? And that's encouraging the physical distancing of the 6 feet scenario. If you are home, are sick, please stay at home. Protect yourself while visiting gymnasiums, and basically do the right thing, you know, like the vaccines and those types of things. But the masks are no longer mandated within Maricopa County and that type of thing. So there's a battle going on between the city of Phoenix and our governor, as well as potential Maricopa counties. There are people suing travel ship agencies about wearing masks or cannot get on a boat. So this thing is an ever-moving issue when it comes to that. But we ask that simple personal responsibility comes into play a lot as we're here, but just enjoy yourself and keep yourself as healthy as you can, right? So a year ago, there was a mask mandate issued. That was carried out through Maricopa County. And then last week, our governor came out and basically said that no longer needs to be. So the recommendations moving forward, again, we listened to the Centers of Disease Control, Arizona Department of Health, the Arizona Fire and Medical folks, as well as Banner Health, checking in as far as how the hospitals are doing, how crowded they are, and what's going on locally. So that kind of helps shape our decisions as we move forward, and I think we're in a good spot. There's going to be a little bit of a bump, I think. We're doing about, 100 and something cases a day in Maricopa County as we speak. So we'll see what that presents. I know spring break was upon us and continues to be, so that's a little bit of the bump in the road I think we're seeing, but hopefully we get through this. I know the vaccines are helping. Millions and millions of people locally have taken advantage of that, and I think that's really showing up in the statistics. So I'm going to finalize this. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the data that came out as early as today?
Sure. So like the general manager said, every decision we've made on this whole pandemic has been based on statistical information health advice, and of course, governmental mandates. So on that statistical information, we've gotten our information, like I'm sure you guys have, off the Arizona Department of Health Services website. But we pared it down further and tracked the daily zip code rates and did our own graphing because the county site didn't have that. And you can see from this, we had that huge spike. Everyone was concerned. We had lockdowns, we had mask mandates. But the last several weeks is pretty much flatlined here in the 85375 zip code, which is excellent news. We get maybe one case per day. We do expect a big caseload to drop on the stats today, and I'm being informed that's a backlog of old cases. So if you see that number jump up, they're old cases. We also have begun tracking the vaccination rates. You can see on the graph, it's started off really high and has been gradually adding about 200 vaccinations a day in this specific zip code. We're up to 75% of our population being vaccinated, which is excellent. And also we know that of those daily cases in the county, and there's only a couple hundred, only 11% of those are people 55 and older. So a couple hundred cases may seem like a lot, but we're only about 11%, and that's spread out with all the seniors in Maricopa County. So again, kudos to everyone who's done the right thing, worn the mask, gotten the vaccination, and stayed safe. So just in summary, like Bill said, there is some back and forth with the governor and the county and suing over these mask mandates, and can he have the authority to rescind the local mask mandates? We're at a spot, we're given all the information, all the stats, all the health advice. In our very specific situation here in Sun City West, it was time to lift that mandate as the governor lifted the requirement, and we're sticking with that. We're watching those variants. If they should change or spike up in this area, then we will react. We're very mobile. Our pandemic task force can react very quickly. But right now we're in good shape. So with that, I'm sure the general manager and myself will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And how we do this, for people we haven't met in a long time in person, we ask our board directors first, and then we go to comments from the community. So each one of these steps will be the way. Thank you for your patience on this. Directors, any questions for Bill or Katie on this? Sharon?
I'm gonna hand this out to the board. There's extra copies for the rest of the people. This is actually the state of Arizona's executive order. It is not the ones that you put up there specifically to this organization. And if you turn to page 2 in the executive order, the second item down, and I'm going to read this into the minutes because it's specific to us. It says businesses, whether for-profit or non-profit, institutions, professions, or entities that physically operate in this state and serve the public or the employers are encouraged to continue to take actions recommended by the CDC, U.S. Department of Labor, Occupational Safe and Health Administration, and ADHS to limit and mitigate the spread of COVID-19. ADHS shall update its guidance accordingly. These entities still maintain the right to institute and enforce policies to mitigate against COVID-19 spread, including the use of face coverings and physical distancing. And they retain the right to refuse service to those who do not comply. So when on Friday afternoon Bill wasn't here, instead of taking a deep breath, we went out and lifted a mask mandate. Now I'm getting calls on a regular basis every day asking and saying, I can't go out because we don't have masks on. It is not hard to put a mask on. And when Mr. Schwind answered me in a letter that he sent me, he specifically stated, I have a choice. Well, once you lifted the mask mandate, I don't have a choice. Because the doctors are telling anybody that's in this community, if you have any type of immune system problem, you should be wearing a mask, and the people around you should not be going into any place, including a closed building, without wearing a mask and having everybody else wear a mask. And the same thing goes with the physical distancing. So I'd like to know why we kept just arbitrarily lifted it because this follows us. And we didn't follow the guidelines specifically. We just decided someone decided, Bill wasn't here, so I don't even know who decided, to be quite honest. And I'm not okay with it, and most of the people that I've talked to, every person who's calling me asks why we don't have the mask mandated.
can go ahead and respond to that. Director Heddick, yes, as we show on this slide, it was optional for private businesses to continue to enforce local mandates. Our pandemic task force we've had a pandemic plan in place for a decade, and that pandemic task force has been meeting for a year and a half since this virus first started appearing in China. So well back in December, before it started hitting here in March, that pandemic task force meets regularly, makes decisions, and when Bill was not here, that task force was well poised to make that same decision, and we did choose to lift it. And as President Kuciak said, the governor signed a bill the other day that does provide immunity to associations like ours if we act in good faith, if we do our best to provide COVID policies, then we can't be sued or we'll be immune from those types of lawsuits. So all of those things taken into consideration led to that decision, and I understand you don't agree with it, but it was based on the statistics I just showed you, health advice, the community reaction, and the vaccination rate in this community, which is higher than pretty much anywhere else in the state that I've seen. So
That's for first shots, you're right, but we also opened this up to people in general, to the outside public. So in doing all of those things, why can't we leave the mask mandate in place? Why didn't we have all our clubs set up to start on Monday with the mask mandate? And instead we threw it into chaos because all the clubs Monday morning are trying to figure out what they do. We've had people that are in the clubs who've simply said, we're not having the club meet anymore because we can't do this. So why are we just arbitrarily going out without even asking the public or talking to the public about what they want? This is their community too.
It's not arbitrary.
Well,
And like every other decision this association has made for the last year and a half, it's based on the stats that we follow.
Right.
And like every decision we've made, there's people that agree and people that disagree. And in this case, I'm sorry that we'll have to disagree. We made the best decision for the whole community.
I would like to just add to that, if I may, and that is early on in the presentation, we did say that we do follow the Arizona Department of Health. And that second slide there basically pointed out for the last year, as numbers were rising and percentages were going up and hospitals were filling up, there were mandated and recommended rules and regulations that we imposed. So when things were spiking and things got very substantial when it came to a transmission rate, we closed our facilities as per their recommendations. And when things lightened up a little bit and it dropped down to a moderate level, we opened up our facilities to a 50% number. And then as things were continuing to drop, the recommendation was then to go to a 25% entry level. And then it got to a point where they took all of those recommendations off the board. The state did, because things were leveling out, vaccines were picking up, and things were improving. So we opened. And then in my absence, yes, the governor came out with an executive order, and then we fell back onto the March 21st release from the Arizona Department of Health when it talks about releasing the mask mandate. So we did. And that's our fallback position, because instead of the arbitrary answer that we want to get accused of, we have something to fall back on. And that is what I presented earlier. And that is what Arizona Department of Health is recommending. And that is the position we have taken. And we have taken that for a year and 3 months now.
I just feel that safety should come first in this community.
I can't argue safety. I'm 100% behind it.
Excuse me. Thank you. Sue?
Just a comment. It seems that those people who are concerned are wearing masks, and you can see that today. So I don't understand really the concern. I go into some of the club rooms, and some people are still wearing masks. That's fine. They're protecting themselves. So I'm not understanding the high concern.
Bob?
Well, I agree with Sue. We've now reached a point after putting up with this for a year now. Everyone's got to take a little of their own responsibility. You don't feel safe? Put the mask on. You can always put it on. You don't even have to have a pandemic to put a mask on. You can wear it at any time. So I think to say that we were arbitrary in doing it is totally wrong.
Okay. Any other comments from the directors? Any comments from the audience? Your audience, if you'd like, hold on. This is how it works. Come up to the podium, okay? And at the podium, Please state your name and your rec number. You have 2 minutes to speak on it if you need. With a large room, we're going to put some mileage into everybody today, getting up to that podium. If, as they're getting up there, one at the podium, please. Thank you.
Okay. Mine is not really the mask, but it has to do with the mask. It has to do with our whole setups. So our room was set up, so we had a distancing between us. Now the tables are all like they were originally, with 4 chairs at a table or 2 chairs at a table. So there's no distancing. Apparently you think distancing is good because we're distancing here. Could we at least go back to distancing in our club rooms? Since you're distancing here, apparently you think that's important.
Absolutely, it's a club responsibility at that point. The club can distance whoever they want, whenever they want.
Do we just tell because we're not setting it up, the rec center's setting it up, and they all of a sudden set it up, as far as I know.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
I'm sorry, Karen Bjork,
Karen, what rec center do you,
Beardsley.
Beardsley? All you have to do is contact either Tim
Beardsley?
Peterson or Dave Bennett, both oversee those.
Okay,
And they will be happy
Do
to
that?
take care of any issues
Thank
you
you.
have with that.
thank you.
Not a problem. I think one of the things that we have that's great in our community, we have to just get our people to the right people to get the things done.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
My name is Kathy Schillinger, and I'm just making one point to what Sue just said. Wearing a mask protects you. That is absolutely wrong. You're wearing a mask to protect the people around you. The CDC has been very clear about that. So my wearing a mask does not protect me. It protects you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi,
Good
my name
morning.
is September Amix, and I just bought a house here last year. My rec card number, I think, is 135300. And I have a ton of experience in medical research and in, I was a nurse, so I have an extensive background, and I'm also quite interested in everything. So I read and watch and do all that kind of stuff. And I would like to point out that, some of the statements that people make seem to be in a way that makes people respond, but it's not really, what they're asking is just as important. Like the lady over here asserted that you guys were being irresponsible in protecting the other recommended members of community when the state or whatever declares otherwise, that you should be following alternative. But she has yet to state exactly which you are not following. You are following exactly what they recommended. And she's saying that you're not. And I would like to know, what are you actually saying that they're not following that is troubling you? Because you read it. It said, if you feel like you need to, you wear a mask. You do this, you do that. It all points back to the individual. It doesn't say anything about everybody else around you is responsible for making sure that you are safe. And so I wouldn't be blaming the board. If you want to be safe, you do what you need to do to feel that way and then go on from there. It's not everybody else's responsibility to move away from you and to, stand 6 feet back. And as a nurse, I can tell you, masks, as far as my training went, they are
Your time has expired.
okay. I
Would-
just wanted to.
Would you like some more?
I'll close it up.
Very quickly, please.
Okay. So, I would like to see that we take a step back, we evaluate questions when they come at us, and then, actually answer the question. So, if she's saying you're not following, then do the following. Yeah. Say what it is.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Okay. Are there any other comments? Any other comments from the board? Staff, any comments from the staff? Hearing none, we'll move on. We'll move on from here. The next thing is 303, Arts and Design Special Committee discussion. Sue, this is all about you.
Okay, I think we need to clarify what we did. And one of the things was to get approval from the board in order to start a special committee, which is standard practice. And so what we did at our last time period was to approve that this committee would operate. Our special committees only operate during the maximum they can do is 1 year. So this committee is going to do its work in 2 months, and the purpose of the committee is to gather the data about the areas in our community where we could use some artistic upgrades and where we could display some art. And you can read the 4 goals that we had set. This does not involve any cost. In the proposal, if this committee seems to be of value, next year's president may come to the board again and say that we'd like to have this special committee work again for a time period. And at that point, then there might be some actual activities that are implemented, which might have some cost factors. So the cost was put into next year's budget, which would start, July 1st, into the general budget, which is developed by the general manager and Pete Finelli, our CEO. And we don't vote on those individual items. So the agreement that we agreed to was to start the committee. It had nothing to do with the funding. The funding is inside of the budget for next year. And we as a board either vote for that budget or we vote against it. We don't vote the individual items in there. We only vote the things over 50,000. So that's a clarification. It may have been, when I presented the proposal, it may have been confusing because of that. So does that clarify it?
Any comments from the directors on this? Ms. Haddock?
I'm asking that this be filed with the minutes of the board meeting dated March 18th. I did not understand from the presentation that there was to be a $30,000 distribution to the committee even following for the following year. I don't know where you came up with the $30,000. It doesn't state in here what you'd be using the monies for. And had I known that, I would not have voted yes. If the $30,000 does not, because in your presentation, you specifically stated that everything would be coming back to the board. There was no discussion at all made of the $30,000. And in your presentation and the motion that we passed, it just says year. It does not say 2021, 2022. It specifically says $30,000. So I don't know what the $30,000 even is for, and so I just want this. I know I can't change my vote now, but I didn't understand it, and I want this filed with the minutes and amended.
No.
Because I don't think that's right.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Any comments or questions from the audience? Hearing none, that discussion, once again, to Sue's point, if you don't feel it's available for funding, it's part of the budget coming up and go on from there. Next part of discussion was a Desert Garden Club greenhouse discussion. Okay, Sharon, I know you put this on there for an item. Please go right ahead.
My only question was, we never had a conversation at the board regarding the $300,000 investment at the garden club. I don't have a problem with having us add a new piece. My problem is we told pickleball and tennis both to wait until we did the master plan. So why are we taking the Desert Club out and saying, you can have what you need, but we can't do this with pickleball or tennis?
Well,
so what is the purpose of not having the discussion here?
The discussion is part of the 50,000 plus and 100,000 plus line items on the budget that we go to each and every step of the way. It's aligned. It'll be in there and it'll say what we do in May or April, whatever we have that on our agenda for the governing board meeting, we will say, this is going to be a motion for X amount of dollars for this project. It's either a yay or nay at that point. And is that, I'm going to have to refer to my, my treasurer. Is that not correct, Madam Treasurer, that this is an individual line item that is in the budget coming up that is for discussion?
You are correct, President George.
Are you on? You're not, green light on.
My green light's on. Is it not coming through?
There it is, there.
Okay. Yes, that is correct. Each item will be addressed line item by both the B&F committee and by the board. I do think that there's one thing that you might see is a little different. As I understand it, the current structure for the garden club is very much in need of repair or replacement. That is not going to change their footprint, where I believe with pickleball and tennis there were going to be some major changes in their footprints in our community. So there are some differences there. This is seen as other things have been done with clubs where their facilities have deteriorated and need to be improved.
Thank you. Roberta, thank you.
I just want to reiterate basically what Ann said about the repair or replacement. This was brought, it was part of our tour that the Properties Committee did in October, and also was discussed at the Properties Committee and recommended to the governing board by the Properties Committee.
That was on, if I remember correctly, that was November 7th meeting. And it was on your minutes that it was moved forward for approval to be put into the capital budget.
Correct.
And I'm just going to jump. Madam Secretary, as your Charter Club's chairman, has this been through your Charter Club's committee for discussion?
Absolutely, and we moved unanimously to move it forward.
And that was in January 12th, so right now it's been approved by those two, and B&F, because it's part of the individual budget, will be an individual line item, but they moved that forward to us. Is that correct?
B&F addressed this, I believe it was either January 16th or 19th, after it had already gone before Charter Clubs and Properties Committee. These have all been documented in minutes. All these meetings were made available to board members and the community, so they've been discussed thoroughly to this point. It's not finalized until B&F signs off on the total budget and the whole board approves the budget.
Right, and again, these are going to be individual line items that are over $100,000.
That is correct.
Thank you. I just want to make sure.
George?
Yes, Sharon?
Just one question then. The original was for $150,000. The new one that's in the budget is now $300,000. So there is a difference between what was originally given from both, and I don't know that that all did go through each of the committees.
Sharon, there was not a difference in the dollars. It was the allocation of dollars of the rec center's responsibility and a club responsibility, which, as you can see down our agenda, will be talked about the club status discussion of 507s and things like that. And if they'll be kind enough, that is one of the issues that we have with that. That's why that dollar difference was changed.
Right.
The total project was not.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to get at, though, is we are now taking on the responsibility of the $300,000. The club was going to pay that back. Now they're not. So now you have a difference.
No, there's not I mean to interrupt you, but the club did not say they were not willing to reimburse us or anything like that. That is not the discussion.
I didn't say they said they weren't going to reimburse us. We told them they were not to reimburse us.
That is something that, like I said, we'll talk underneath the 501c7 discussion because it's part of that also.
Okay.
And I'll
so
clear
that's
that.
why I'm asking whether or not the replacement versus the is it still at $300,000 to do all of the work, and that's what we're still approving is what I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, any other discussion on this? Carl, you're looking there like a stone statue. Thank you for looking as good as you do up there. Good job. Any discussion from the audience? Wow, I like this audience. I hope this continues. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you for all your time on this one. The next item is something that I'm going to be bringing up. One of the things, if you've heard talked about over and over again over the last couple of months, is something called a master plan of how we're looking at our community and the things around there. And one of the issues that has come up that has been discussed for the last number of years has been strategic direction on transportation. And what I'm going to be doing is looking for consensus from the board on whether I should direct the general manager to have this included in the master plan moving forward. Okay, and I can read this into the minutes. We all have this. This was posted part of them. I said we are preparing a long-range plan for the association that will examine the recreation centers of Sun City West direction for the next level. Next level, 10-year plus. There are a myriad of demands for dollars and physical space, both which are limited. Historically, the association has not been involved in the business of transportation. While the previous two governing boards voted against transportation efforts, there's a current interest to bring some kind of private or public transportation to Sun City West community. Including a transportation initiative will cost money, both in the scope of long-range planning and the implementation of the plans that are options. A Sun City West transportation plan can take two general forms. One, privately funded exclusively by the annual owner-member dues with ridership available only to Sun City West residents who show their valid direct card and are in good standing. Or two, publicly funded by a public funding source, possibly with some recreation center financial support and a ridership available for public and Sun City West residents. At the April 9th workshop, we will determine board consensus on this topic to assist the general manager in the task of completing the full scope of the recreation centers of Sun City West long-range plans. And I get to a bottom line. Do you want transportation including a strategic long-range plan or not? Okay. Well, a couple of quotes from the transportation study of 2020. If I remember correctly, it's page 53. The Maricopa Association of Government has put out there. Sun City West cannot dedicate a transportation tax without incorporating or creating a special purposing taxing district. A special taxing district will require a submission of a petition to the county and must demonstrate the people in the community expressly the desire to incorporate it, either through direct petition or an election. The other approach is to establish a local transportation funding in the Northwest Valley Sun Cities and is to implement a transportation directed fee as part or in addition to association assessments. I am looking for consensus on this from the board, whether we want to instruct the general manager to include this in the master planning. And I'm going to just go quickly for consensus around. Jim Young?
Is this thing on? Yeah, I guess it is. My position is that the transportation project is totally different, doesn't belong in Sun City West planning. I'm one that, as I get older, I probably will use it, and I'd like it, but I don't think that we're ready in this area to put it on Sun City West shoulders to pay for it.
Thank you, Jim. Bob?
I agree with Jim. I don't think it should come on master plan. That's outside our scope.
Thank you, Bob. Sue?
I'm in agreement with the other two directors. I see this more as a community thing that maybe belongs with PORA as a community issue because I think it has value, but I don't see that as part of the rec center's responsibility.
And?
I can't add anything that the other three directors haven't said. I agree with what they have said. It's not part of the board's responsibility.
Donna?
I agree with the other directors. Thank you.
Roberta?
I agree with them. I think transportation's important to this community, but the master plan, I really believe, should be involving our space and trying to accommodate those clubs that need space.
Thank you. Sharon?
I passed out a piece of paper to you all because this is exactly what I was asking you for a meeting for since January. 7 times, there's been no meeting set up so that you could understand the philosophy behind the transportation. No one is suggesting you incorporate. No one is suggesting you pay a tax. No one is suggesting that you have any monies involved in putting the transportation in this community. Maricopa Association of Governments is already proposing a plan. They've had them working on this for the past 3 years. The plan that I came to with you to in December was a pilot program. Nothing had to come out of the budgets here. Nothing had to be paid for here. You turned that down. I'm fine with that. I don't care what you do. I'm trying to tell you, though, that transportation is going to be coming to the West Valley. You're either going to be a part of it or you're going to be not a part of it. So when the buses or the circulators or whatever's put in here stop out there at the street level and don't come up to the rec centers, you can explain to the community why they're not there. All we're asking you to do is to be part of the conversation. No one has asked you for money at all. None of it is even covered ever about the money. You are now paying a Proposition 400 tax, a half-cent sales tax. You've been paying it for 40 years. Proposition 100, Proposition 200, Proposition 300, Proposition 400, and there will be out on the 2022 ballot a Proposition 400 extension. It will either be another half-cent sales tax or it will be a 3/4 cent sales tax. It's going to be, they're collecting over $880 million in this state a year with that half-cent tax. And it's being used in all of the areas of cities, not the unincorporated areas in the past. The legislature is now dealing with the unincorporated areas, which includes Sun City and Sun City West. It includes places like Waddell. It includes places like Vistancia, and it includes places that are out in other areas. That Anthem is another one. None of those areas have transit at this time. So the whole purpose of this was being able to connect. So whether that is circulators here, it's all public transportation. If Sun City West wants to do their own private, yes, you'd have to pay for it because it'd be a private. It wouldn't be public. But what we're talking about here is public transportation. And circulators are part of public transportation. Does anybody on this board know what a deviated route is? Anybody on here know what a fixed route is?
Yes, we do.
You
I
do.
do.
What's a deviated route?
I've read the study, Sharon.
What's the deviated route?
And to that point, a deviated route is a route that goes around and says, if we need a portion and you call up, we can stop along the way that the route is. It'll stop along the way.
Right.
Yes, we do know. And I'm just looking here for consensus on whether this should be part of the long range planning of the recreation centers.
And what I'm saying is it's interesting that you started over here so that they couldn't hear the rest of the information. Because all we're asking you to do is be involved. There's no money being involved here, so why don't you want to put it in your plan?
Sharon, that's not the discussion that's here. The discussion that's here, the discussion that's here is whether we want to tell the general manager to incorporate transportation into a
100%
long-range plan.
100% yes.
Okay, Lou?
Well, as everyone knows, I'm about 10 days on the board, and so
And Lou, you can abstain if you'd like. It's okay.
I think I have to. I really don't have enough information. I have talked with Sharon. I can see some benefits, but at this point, I really don't have the knowledge to be able to.
That's fine. Thank you, Lou. Bob?
Yeah, just one remark. We're not saying that we don't want transportation. That's a good idea. Just does not belong in the recreation center's plan. If the county or the state is going to do something, we can most certainly get involved in it, but it does not have to be part of our master plan.
But if it's not part of your master plan, Bob, how do you know where you want it to go? If it's not part of the master.
You know after you get the information from the county, and then you can decide, do we like it or not like it, and then get involved. But it's not part of the master plan or long-range plan.
Okay. Then why was it put in the master plan, just out of curiosity? Because that's one of the things that's in a master plan.
I'm sorry, Sharon, I did not hear you.
Why is transportation one of the main things that's in a master plan scope of work, if it isn't part of it?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you clearly. I apologize.
That's okay. Why is transportation one of the major things that's in the scope of work of a master plan if it isn't important?
It is a master plan for a city or a town or anything else. We are the recreation centers. We are not the town of Sun City West. We are not the overall people who are in Sun City West. We are an association where people who we see here pay a fee to belong to. Not everybody belongs to the association. Not all people in the Sun City West zip code are eligible to belong to the association. So what we're asking is the opportunity to say, does this belong in the association's master plan or not? Okay. Hearing the consensus, Ann, go right ahead.
I just have one question for Director Heddick. You keep saying we. Are you saying we with you being a member of the governing board for Sun City West or as a board member for Northwest Valley Connect?
No, for Sun City West. It has nothing to do with Northwest Valley Connect.
Okay,
Northwest Valley Connect is a volunteer organization that takes people on rides. That's it. And I think a number of people out here in the audience have been on our rides.
Thank you. And anything else? Thank you. Roberta?
Well, I'd just like to say for someone who's been in this community and waiting for a master plan for years, that basically we're talking about space for clubs that are the backbone of this committee. And I would hate to see it, I would like the master plan to concentrate on space for clubs, whether it's going to be pickleball needs more space or tennis or boomers or whatever, that our master plan involves those groups that are part of our community and finding, space. We did a lot of this over the last few years with space utilization, but we never really had, and I always giggle whenever the term master plan comes up because we've been waiting for one for so long.
Well, and obviously it's changed more than once because there's from 2004 to now, there's been maybe a little change in technology and things like that. But that's part of the discussion. Is there any other discussion from the board on this one for me to give consensus to the general manager? To the audience, any questions or comments from them? That's good. Stay in your seats. I'm like that. Thank you. General Manager, you're directed not to include transportation in the master plan of the recreation centers of Sun City West. Thank you. Okay. Next thing up is Bill. It's all about you. Okay. Thank you. And come on up. Step up. Just remember, you're on your YouTube debut on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, ladies. Thank you guys so much. This is going to be a lengthy discussion. After Bill gets through with his discussion and we have some discussion about that, we're going to take a break. We'll have as we would say, a small bathroom break, but it's a good thing. But after this discussion is over, thank you for your patience on this.
Is Katie Van Leuven in the house? All right, she's off today. I just wanted to tip my hat to her. She's within her last couple of weeks of employment here after 16 years of putting her life into that village store. I just wanted to personally and publicly thank her for all the efforts that she's done and for all of your support in the audience helping out. where we are. So, thank you. Thank you. Can you all see that in the back? You want me to dim any lights? You good? Okay. So, let me go back to about a year ago, and I had an opportunity to meet with an individual who was representing one of our clubs. And they were generating some money, and they sought independent auditing and an accountant to help them get through the processing of what's called the CR7 or the end of the year reports. And a conversation came to be with their accountant and shined a little light on the fact that the amount of money being generated and how it's being generated was a bit of a violation with the IRS code when it came down to a club identified as a social club with a tax ID called 501c7. You may or may not know, but there are 29 501c somethings out there. And they all have rules and regulations that are different and how it's applied to what these clubs or what these individual groups or associations and organizations do. Okay? So what we're going to do today is try to explain a little bit as to where we've hit the bump in the road. And it's been going on for a while. And once a problem gets kind of brought to our attention, I personally signed a contract working here that as your general manager, I have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for this association. And that's what I'm doing here. And I'm hopefully in the process helping you. So a month ago, we had an executive meeting with our governing board. We spoke about Sun City West and how we interact with the IRS. We have a lot of clubs out there, right? And we do things that we kind of touched on a little bit today with the greenhouse and pickleball and some other things. But we have been operating with some financial advancements as far as a process that we've been doing when we approve capital improvement funds. Can you help us pay us back? Those types of things have been negotiated over the last couple of years. We've got the 501c7 tax status and how clubs and how you guys generate your revenue. What are you doing? We have craft clubs and we have card playing clubs and we have bicycle riding clubs, and they're all over the map, no pun intended. And then we have administrative guidelines that we have in place, which are our rules, regulations, and procedures. And I've got a packet of that on my chair there, and I can gladly show you that there are a lot of highlighted pages in there that directly conflict with the rules and regulations that we, I think, have to abide by when it comes to the IRS, as well as our own organizational policies and bylaws. So moving forward, we have 103 clubs. I don't know if all the 100 chairs that we set out here today represent each and every club. I doubt it. Most of you, I'm going to assume, are craft related. But we'll get there. So we've got social clubs and we have golf clubs, and I'd rather have a golf club in my hand right now. But we have card playing clubs and crafts and dancing and exercise, outdoor sports. I mean, Sun City West does it all. I don't want to brag, but did we not hit number 2 in the nation as far as the amenities go, as far as retirement communities of 55 plus? Congratulations, right?
And Bill, I just want to interrupt you on that one because I love to. Okay, not only were we ranked number 2, villages were number 1, but one of the things that we scored 100 points out of 100 was for our amenities as they are today. Not just an idea, but we were the only community in Arizona that scored that 100% for our amenities of what people have here, moving into, and are looking forward coming in. So kudos to the forethought of staff over the years. And I'll throw one name out there, Russ Boston, who's hiding from us, and you got Todd, who keeps our golf courses. These people do a tremendous job, and we need to respect and thank them every day for it. Thank you.
Thank you, George, very much. Ooh, I'm sorry. A little too aggressive here. So, when it comes to overseeing the association, we have a plethora of bylaws and policies that exist, right? And so they're spread out all over a array of various kinds of topics. And so at times, there's a lot to learn. Board members change, 3 of them every year. And there is a lot to know as far as that goes. I've been here 2 years and 4 months trying to go through as many bylaws, policies, rules changes, procedures, and whatnot that exist managing this association. 34 years in government, I know my way around resolutions and ordinances, but when we get into this environment here, we're dealing with bylaws, policies, and a lot of customer service, right? So, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. However, when we have these issues come up, like presented to us via a tax accountant, let's peel back the onion and figure out what happened. How did we get in this position? So we have a few conflicts that exist as far as what's written in our RMPs, our rules and regulations, and what exists in bylaws and what exists in actual policies. And we'll get there. So let's start, as we had this meeting last month with our governing board, we tried to tackle the big items first, and that is advertising, right? So a lot of the clubs, outdoor recreation, sports clubs, advertise, but that is basically a trap in the world of the IRS when it comes to not understanding where your revenue comes from. And as a social club, 501c7, you have limits that are set by the federal government. And so when you advertise to bring in money to help your club do things or pay back kind of advancements type stuff on not so much loans, but just these agreements that we've had, we're causing a bit of the problem ourselves. And so that's a problem. So the sale of advertising is looked at non-traditional business activity, because whether there's a sign on the fence that says Sands Motors or just a green sign, that does not affect your ability to play ball, right? So there's no real need there, because it doesn't really take up the pleasure or the recreational need of a club playing there to have a sign. So advertising and the revenue generated by advertising is problematic. Naming rights, the same thing. And so our policies, and I know you can't read this one, but this will be online. You can come find this and read this at the luxury of your own home on your computer, and that's all well and good. But we have existing policies that talk about non-event advertising, okay? And that is limited to 3-year runs. Yet, we have 20-year agreements for titling pickleball, Liberty, or Sands, or Mimos, or those types of things exist on our campus for longer periods of time than 3 years. So there's a conflict within our own policy. So we deal with it, or we change our policy. I don't know if the governing board really wants to see every facility we have here with signs splashed all over them. You know, we could get Alpo, I suppose, to put signs up on the dog park if we need extra money. But I'm not sure that is really the benefit of living here. This is a beautiful community, and I think Del Webb is a genius. What he has established here and has lasted this long, not only here, but all over the nation, is an incredible living arrangement for folks 55 plus. I live in one of the communities. I get it. So we have a conflict with some policies, particularly one with the naming rights, and this is for, and when it comes to single events, like a tournament or something along those lines, the policy says you can have signs up for 6 weeks, not 52 weeks, right? So these are things that have to be corrected, and that's what we're in the process of doing. So our bylaws are another group of rules, per se, that exist here in the association. And basically, our governing board cannot enter into a contract from a third service party for anything longer than a year, with a few exceptions. Our health insurance, those types of things, contracts for copy machines, various things like that, business related, we're allowed to do. But getting into contracts with other issues such as that, they don't want to commit other boards to various kind of financial responsibilities that don't need to happen. And these bylaws, written a long time ago, spell that out. So we've taken recently, with the help of Donna Maloney and the clubs committee, Sue Fitzsimons, looking at the donation, memorialization, naming rights, and advertising guidelines So we can basically grab them all from policy and grab them from our bylaws and kind of compose them all into a very findable packet, so things don't get mixed up and we fall off the rails again. So we've got a pretty good set of guidelines now, which Bill didn't write, but basically Bill found with the assistance of others, and we've kind of grouped them all together into a very functional binder of guidelines. It's good for us, okay? But we still have work to do. And that comes down to where we are today, and this involves you all. And so, arts and crafts clubs, right? And here we are. And I can't, well, I'll leave that alone. Moving on, our rules, regulations, and procedures for charter clubs. And I know you probably have seen a copy of it, but there is some very conflicting information in the RRMPs that deal with what we and you do every day. And I'll start with the sentence here on the very bottom of this slide, which we can read. An individual selling private merchandise for the express purpose of generating personal monetary gain is prohibited. Well, guess what? Not really, huh? Because there are craftsmen out there doing what you love to do in the form of a hobby shop and performing in these classrooms and these social club rooms that are profitable. And so we've got to fix the conflict, okay? And so as we move forward, some of the things we're facing is penalty from the big boys, and that is the IRS. So as we sit here today, if we do false filing and do other kinds of things like that, we're subject to a $20 a day fee for failure to file, and then potentially up to $10,000 relative to how much money each club makes per year. 5% gross or 10,000, whichever is smaller. Now, I'll share with you as we move forward, the IRS is somebody we really don't want to pick a fight with. We want to do what's right, and let's move this forward, right? So that's ultimately, that's going to be the end of the day today. It's going to be a resolution that we're going to all leave at this room, I think, with a smile. So that's good, right? So let's talk about the club concerns when it comes to IRS and tax status. A club that engages in business, such as by making social or recreational facilities available to the general public, is a problem when it comes to your tax status 501c7. There are card playing groups that allow outside people to come in and play. There are dance groups that take place in this room that allow outside members, not owner members, general public, to come in and pay a fee and dance and take lessons and enjoy themselves and recreate as they will. All great, right? It's a wonderful thing to do. Can't fight recreation. However, it's in violation of IRS rules because the amount of money being generated by the outside folks in your private group, social club, is a violation. And we have to fix that. Secondly, selling products that are not organized or operated exclusively for pleasure, recreation, or other non-profitable purposes is not considered exempt, tax exempt. And so I am a woodworker. I belong to a wood shop. I make a lot of cutting boards for my family, my friends, Christmas gifts. I do it all the time. I had at one point in time thought about putting up a web page and selling a lot of my crafts. I was tapped on the shoulder and told, you can't do that. That's not what this club is for, right? But that's in another city. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about you. And so there are rules that apply to these clubs. So, again, the IRS tax code and social clubs. Of the 103 clubs that we have in Sun City West, right, 3 of them are 501c3s. There's one in the corner. Auto restoration. They have a completely different set of IRS rules that they comply with. Educational purposes, they donate to charity, they have all these stipulations that is required of them to be qualified as a tax-exempt 501c3 organization. When it comes to 501c7s, these are social clubs. So think back, 40 years ago, and how and why these clubs came to existence. Having a little glitch. I apologize for that. Okay. So, what the IRS is looking at the end of the year is in determining whether a club is operating for the pleasure and recreation of its members. The IRS looks at your sources of revenue. They don't care how much you spend. They look at where the money's coming into your club, right? So a social club, the support should be from your membership fees, the dues that you charge your members, and various assessments. You want to have a Christmas party and you want to charge $25 for the Christmas party. That's all internal money. That's good. That's fine, and you're playing by the rules in the world of the IRS. But a club, 501c7 specifically, is limited to receiving 35% of its gross receipts from outside of its membership without risking its tax-exempt status. And this is where we trip up. KDV does a terrific job in accounting for everything that's sold at the Village Store and all of the craft sales that go on in Sun City West. It's tremendous. It's huge, to the tune of $7 million over the last 10 years. Okay? That could be a problem. And so here we are today working on resolution. Within the 35% of what's allowable for these clubs to generate outside of their club revenue dues, 15% of that cannot be derived from the use of our facilities from the general public. That, I think, is where the card playing group got into trouble. They have a lot of outside play, as do the dancers that come in here for weekend dancing classes and dance lessons and those types of things. A lot of guests are coming in, paying money to be here, but it's tipping the scale not in their favor. And so when it comes to that, you know, the IRS has ruled that income received from a club from members for non-recreational services should be characterized as non-member income for the purposes of gross receipt limitation. That's where the softball club gets in trouble. That's where pickleball gets in trouble, because they are selling advertising, naming rights, and those types of things, and that is not viewed as member money. It's non-member income. Again, and the IRS will tell you that an organization that exceeds these limits may lose their tax status. So let's talk about some craft clubs. 40 years ago, when this place was being built and craft clubs were coming up and people were making their scrapbooking and they're doing various types of painting of plates and ceramics and those types of things, it was for local pleasure. I enjoy doing that on a small scale, right? But in 40 years, things changed. 40 years ago, when Del Webb was building these places and these clubs were forming and doing arts and crafts, credit cards weren't invented yet. 40 years ago, 1980, credit card. 1991, the internet, World Wide Web. And now we have various web pages that allow you to sell your product worldwide. All right, so things have changed. We've gone from social club, recreation, kind of biding your time, enjoying your retirement, that type of thing, to a little bit of a change. I can't advance this, Katie. Things change, right? So now we deal with folks making things, kind of mass production, bulk sales, those types of things have transpired. Over the last 40 years, we've morphed into a business, or a lot of businesses. About 35 when it comes to the craft club. Can you advance that? I'm sorry. So we've evolved into cottage industry. Okay, not saying it's bad. It's terrific. I'll make you Christmas or cooking utensils if you like to. They're pretty nice, and you can buy them from me. But we got to do it correctly, right? So cottage industry normally is something you're going to do, very low capital instrument for, you don't have to invest a lot of money in tools and that type of thing. Typically working out of your garage, your house, that kind of thing. This is never going away. Cottage industry is here to stay, as are you, as is the store. So we're here to stay, and we're here to continue what we're doing, but we have to do it right. And that's all we're trying to say. Go ahead. So the Village Store, unfortunately, has kind of assisted unknowingly into the problem by selling all of these products that you guys are making, money going back into the club from sales, non-membership dues, and tipping the scale over the 35% scenario, causing us to potentially be in a problem area and these clubs, your clubs, losing your tax status. So with the amount of money being generated by the sales and the promotion and all these crafts that are being made, really, the IRS is going to tell you, you're not tax exempt. And I think that's the message that we're trying to send today to alert you to the fact that you're not. And ultimately, the clubs are going to be responsible for income tax because of the rules that we're currently in, right? We want to play by the rules. Go ahead, I'm sorry. So the governing board has some issues to deal with. And we have, beginning last month, we started playing with this, but we still have a lot on our attorney's table, right? We still don't have all the answers for you. But we have, we've got, and have been dealing with for the last 6 or 7 years, no interest restitution agreements with clubs. Sharon, you brought it up earlier with the greenhouse. Part of the early conversation we had with them was, you know, their facility is in need of repair. And it's about $150,000 to replace what they have now. But their numbers have boomed. And they would like to see their facility expanded. And so they've come to us and basically say, hey, if we can help pay for and offset the cost of that expansion, can you help us out? And knowing now what we know about the IRS scenario, well, how are you going to pay us back? Well, we'll sell more plants. Okay, so there's the problem, right? And so we don't want that to happen. Yeah, we want them to sell more plants, but we got to do it legally without the 501c7 status type thing. So whether the governing board approves the $300,000 project because it was $150,000 for what they had and they'd like to double their size, they could use it. And they really, based on the numbers that we've seen, they're not kidding. So anyway, where the governing board goes with that one, that's all good. Pickleball showed up, and we've been meeting with us for the better part of a year, and they wanted to do some design work this year for potential expansion of the pickleball facilities to the tune of $960,000. And so how are they paying for that? Well, they'd like to take 10 or 15 years and pay us back. No interest, and what happens if you can't? No restitution, there's no policy, and this has become more light on the problem, right? I don't want any of you at the age of 65 or 70 or 75 enjoying yourself playing pickleball every day, worrying about the next 15 years paying me back $900 grand, right? You got better things to do. Play pickleball. Enjoy your time. You don't need debt. And we, the association, should be responsible for providing the venues and the amenities here that you enjoy. That's our job. That's what your fees go for. So the governing board has to deal with a couple of these issues, right? The restitution agreements, we have no existing policy on any kind of thing like that. How we deal with and how we address capital improvement projects and how we, you know, why are we asking people to pay us back? No ramifications on defaults. We're forcing clubs to fundraise. That just seems wrong to me, right? We're forcing them to advertise or forcing you to sell things like stained glass to pay us back $5,000 a year for the next 5 years to offset the cost of a room expansion. Just seems odd, right? Some clubs have a different advantage than some because you don't have a fence that you can put signage on to advertise on. So you can't raise potentially as much money as other clubs do, and there's an equity thing there. And then again, if somebody wants to play pickleball and they move to Sun City West next year and they join the pickleball club and then somebody tells them, oh, and by the way, we owe $900 grand. How good's your fundraising skills? I just came here to play pickleball. So that just to me, we need to stop that. So when it comes to the village store, we're just simply asking for a timeout. We need to get our tax attorney online with a committee that we'd like to put together and find a remedy here. We want to do the right thing. So with KDV's retirement coming up in a couple of weeks is a transition point for us. The stars aligned. right? If we're gonna do something, this is the time to do it, and we need to call a brief timeout, right? And so, thank you. The seasonal craft sales that go on in this room will continue. We're not, I'm sorry. So, we will do everything we can to promote that. Our special event staff, our recreation manager, Riley's in the room. I mean, that's not gonna change. Those things are gonna go on, and we're gonna continue to promote it, and we'll promote even more of them. Pop-up sales at your shops, various independent craft sales at each of the recreation centers, absolutely. We're 100% into it. We get it. Like I said, it's not going away. We just gotta do it right. One more. So here we are, and I know it's getting close to lunch, so I thought I'd show you cake. But this is our organization. It's beautiful. It's delicious. It's great to be here. We just have to figure out how to eat that cake without making a mess, right? And that's why we're here today. One more. So this is the last slide. Ann Brown, our treasurer, has graciously volunteered to act as a chair of a subcommittee to help figure this out. So we're going to get some representation from Donna's group as far as the club committees. We're going to get some budget and finance representation. Ann, as our treasurer, will be involved in this program. I'll be around. Pete Finelli, our CFO, Riley, our rec manager, and our accounting department will be at play, as well as our tax attorney. And we are looking for some folks in this room that want to step up to help us get through a little bit of rough water. And that's all we're after today. And I hope this cleared up a lot of things out there, from a chit chat to everything else. It's not going away. We love you guys, man. It's like, this is what we're after, and we just have to make sure that we have to play by the rules, because we don't want the big boys here. They don't need to be here. We're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for a great presentation. Once again, board, there's going to be discussion. I really want to keep you ladies up there. You're very good for the camera. No, I'm only kidding. First off is that because this is a workshop, I am not allowed to appoint a specials or subcommittee here. However, it will be on the agenda for the governing board regular meeting this month, and we can do it at that point. If you are interested in helping and serving on this, please just email me or email Ann, or go on to our, excuse me, Madam Vice President, I can't remember the name for online committing applications. Thank you so much. Please, this is what involvement is. Now I'm just going to go around for comments about this. Lou, you're number one today.
Well, thank you, George. It's nice to know that. Bill, great presentation. Thank you.
Sharon?
No comment.
Okay. Roberta?
No comment.
Donna?
Thank you, Bill, for drawing this to our attention. It needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Ann?
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to move this forward. Since I was going to be on the committee, it just kind of made sense as a governing board member that I should share it, which I'm happy to do. I would like to get started on this within the next couple of weeks, so if anyone is interested in being on the committee, I don't know how many members I will have. I've just started kind of formulating this in my mind this morning, so it's still very new. But please do go through the application process that is on the Sun City West website, application to be on a committee, and I'm hoping that Karen can put out what this one is, the resolution subcommittee, and I will be in touch.
And to that point, we're here. The proper planning will provide us with great performance on this, and that's what it's all about. Jim?
I'm glad I don't have to deal with this.
Yeah, we're glad we don't deal with you too. Bob?
Everything's been said. Great
Sue?
job.
Yes, I would just encourage people, when you do the application form, identify that this is the committee that you're applying for, because it's a special committee, it won't have that choice there. So, kind of give some background as to why you would want to be on. And I'm really glad that this committee is going to involve the people that are sitting out in the audience here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And folks, I hope people in the audience, I hope this answered a lot of the questions in the hearsay that's out there, because it's really important that all information is out there. I will now entertain, oh, excuse me, not yet. Directors-elect, any comments? I'm sorry. Harry? No? Well, that's good. We're fine. Please step up to the podium. You know the rules and regulations. Name, small unmarked bills and brown paper back. I'm sorry, I'm from the East Coast, but thank you so much for your comments. Please.
Hi, September Amix, and I did not realize there was a time limit before, and I apologize for going over. That wasn't my intention. And I have a couple of questions. One, cottage industries, do you guys know that cottage industries are regulated by the state, and it's an actual business, so that's involved there. And then, from my understanding, things that are sold are required to be sold at the centralized store, that the individuals can't sell things on their own. And I may be mistaken, but it seemed like it was forcing people into to have it in sight there. And I wonder how much of the requested expansion by certain clubs their money that's being generated by outside people coming in, they're getting bigger, and so therefore that's why they want to be bigger. It seems to be since they're doing it like illegally, like you say, then that seems like, well, they wouldn't need to expand so much if they didn't have all this outside stuff coming in. And so, I just want to, I guess I'm going to have to be on this subcommittee. And, and then with cottage industries, I understand you are literally asking the state to work from your home, and yet we have rules in place that we're not allowed to work from home. So we're all aware of all those little ramifications. Okay,
But
I just wanted to see.
We're working our way through this. This is absolutely one of the things we used to call back in the old cost accounting industry. This is work in process.
Oh, okay.
And it is, because again, when you look at it, there are tons of moving parts.
Okay. So I guess that's just, I want to make sure that the ramifications were understood, and that, we are doing the cart before the horse. And then I wanted to know why the IRS is going to go to you if the club is an individual 501, because why aren't they going to them to get the money?
Well, right now we are a 501c4 association, and all the clubs underneath it are a 501c7 umbrella.
So they're okay.
Okay, and that's just really, and I have to say, thank God we have a tax attorney.
Okay.
Because I don't know, first off, if there are any tax attorneys in the room, I'm just going to say I appreciate you more than you'll ever know, because to read the IRS code is probably makes War and Peace look like an overnight read. Thank you.
The last comment I think I'll see is I just noticed a little blurb that said that if 70% of the membership of a club were not attending every month, then the club would be shut down. And I kind of had
Okay, I'm going to have to put that off to another discussion.
Okay.
Okay?
That's
but
fine.
if you'd like to know the ins and outs and the in-betweens of that, contact Donna Maloney. She's in charge of charter clubs, and she can explain it to you in the intimate detail that it needs.
I understand that it's due to space, and I just want to understand that, is that it?
We got people waiting behind you. Thank you. I don't mean to cut you off. Next victim, next person, please.
My name is Rita Irwin. My rec number is 73443. I have lived in Sun City West for 18 years. I became acquainted with the village store by volunteering to monitor in replacement of stained glass club. I found Katie, and I found a home. The store is what this community needs. It is our heart. I do not want to take it away. I have nothing left as far as the store is concerned. I'm leaving when Katie leaves. But these craft members, all of them, need that store. I don't care what you want as far as space. We need the store.
Thank you for your comments.
I'd just like to explain to the people that are talking, I'm not understanding a word you say with a mask on. If you want to stand up and do it, that's fine, but I don't hear you, so. If you can take your mask off, if you feel comfortable doing that while you're speaking, it would be appreciated.
Is it my turn? Okay. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, sorry. My name is Sharon Chesney, 111317. I'm currently treasurer of scrapbooking. Couple clarifications first, just so it is on the record. So you guys, Bill, you said we will not lose the store and we will not lose the craft fairs. Is that correct?
That's good.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And to clarify the letter that I did receive a letter from the rec center this week telling us about this and to come to the meeting. And it also encouraged or suggested that we could have small private sales of our material. Correct? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Can that be done on rec center property like in the club room?
Yes, ma'am.
It can be. So we could have a sale in our club room and no proceeds to the village store, since we haven't had 2 craft fairs, 3 craft fairs.
As we sit here today,
Yes,
like George said, this is a work in progress.
I get it.
Right? So you are I think you're transitioning over to an independent craft store, right? But how you're charging things, how you're assigning, right now the 16% that comes to the village store offsets sales tax as well as money coming back to the rec center to subsidize the operation of the store, paying for staff, electricity, those types of things that monitor that store. So going independent is the kind of the route I think our tax people are telling us, but you as a club need, your EIN number and all your tax certificates and your business license in which to do that. So I'd be very careful as far as, you all are going to be responsible for your own charging and paying the sales tax and those types of things.
So it's not tax-free?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, if you'd like to be, again, it all comes down to accounting and monitoring. If it's just you as scrapbookers and enjoying yourself as a recreational club, you're fine. Like I said, there's 70% of the social clubs of the 100 or so that we have that are doing the right thing. Not that you're doing the wrong thing, it's just you're tripping up on IRS code.
Okay, so I guess I don't get it then. So if we wanted to have our own private little sale, or if 3 of us got together and I had a sale out of my house, I can do that.
I'm telling you that every club's different.
Okay.
There's the 35-15% rule, IRS. So I would recommend that you meet with us privately to work through this thing, because I don't know what your numbers look like. I don't know what your end of year. I don't know how much revenue you generate. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, and one last clarification on the 35% rule. 35% of the gross receipts are allowable. That's gross receipts of the club. So like what we make at the craft, that's the part I don't understand.
Okay, it's 35% of the gross receipts of what your gross receipts are based on. It's not on your sales. Okay, it's based on your dues, your membership, and your assessments.
Right. How many members do you have?
94.
Times how much they pay a year?
$10.
That's your target number. So if you generate more than 35% of that from outside sales, you're upside down in the world of the IRS.
Okay, so if that money is going to the club versus going to members directly, it doesn't make a difference.
They look at your club revenue as a total.
Where you spend money, they don't care. It's where you get money.
It's all about the revenue top. It has nothing to do with what your supplies are or anything else. It is revenue and revenue only.
Okay, all right.
I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but unfortunately, we didn't write the IRS code. Yep. Thank you for coming up here. If you're Kathy, you do not. I'm only kidding.
Kathy Schillinger, I represent the Glass Club, but I'm not really representing them, Copper and Glass. I'm here by myself, but I'm from that club. The previous speaker just addressed some of the concerns that I was going to bring up here when you said we could have pop-up sales or have little sales of our own. All of that ran through the village store. Every check was made out to the rec centers. It wasn't made out to the clubs. We had nothing to do with any of that. So now if we're gonna have a pop-up sale, or if our club is our Beardsley is gonna have a little craft fair of our own, we really need to, you're telling me, step up, get our own numbers, take care of all the tax, everything, that right now, your hands are, we are out of your hands with regard to that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Kathy, it's right now, it's a work in process, like we said. The important part is that you already have an EI number with the IRS. All clubs, 501c7s have that because the report, I don't want to say 1099, I don't remember, 990N or 990T at the end of the year.
Kind of so, and it's just as if we're a social club, and you and I want to get together and make stained glass or play with glass and make some items and create a lampshade for my house. That's good. That's a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You start selling things, you walk into the world of business, and business pays tax.
And what I'm saying is, we charge tax. The village store charges tax. There's $20, there's 6.3% added onto that. So we've been paying tax. So now if we have these little pop-ups, we are now responsible. We're not sending checks and all of our receipts to the village store or to anybody. We, as a club, are responsible now for the tax portion of this.
And that's why we called a brief timeout.
Okay.
So our tax attorney and this subcommittee can get together and figure out the way we're going to move on in the future. We want the store to take place, but when it comes to sales tax and personal income tax from all the crafters making $7 million over the last 10 years, that's taxable. And we have to play by the rules.
And I totally understand that, but I'm thinking what I'm saying right now is you probably should not have said we could have our little pop-up sales, and things like that, because I think people in the clubs aren't going to realize that there's that back end portion that the village store has taken care of all of this time.
Right.
Thank you.
Again, it's communication, and we'll get there. George, Harry would like to have a word.
Harry?
George?
I'm sorry.
IRS agent. What you have here is when you're talking about the 6% tax, you're talking a state tax. IRS is federal tax.
Right.
Which is a whole different animal.
Absolutely. Please. Good morning.
Hi. Hold on. My name is Cindy Putman. I'm with the Silver and the Lapidary Group. My background is journalism and publicity. So on this subcommittee, I would like this advertising issue. I've been wanting to write stories about how great this place is and everybody getting involved with their crafts, and I don't want to do something that's going to hurt you. So that's my question. If you decide that that's advertising and it's not allowed, if somebody let me know if I could write it or not. Just because
I'll refer you to Katie O'Grady. You see her up there?
No.
Katie, put your hand up. There
Okay.
she is over in the corner. She will be able to direct. She's our person who does all of our press releases. And
good.
So that's the contact for you.
In the office.
Yep. And
Thank you.
Believe it or not, you can find her name online.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello. I am Rennie Misso. I'm going to be nervous. And 130704. And a couple of questions I had. Well, did you guys post the job opening for Katie when she was retiring? Did you post that, or were you aware that the store was going to close, so you didn't post?
It's a question that, again, I wouldn't be involved in. That's an operational thing directly. I would ask you to refer that to our HR director. I'm sorry.
You're going to circle back, right?
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. Listen, I'm just going to be very blunt.
Well,
No, wait a second.
No,
My turn.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to be very blunt. We have over 490 employees, and every job posting, anything that has nothing to do with our governing board. I'm just going to be very blunt right now.
No, that's fine, but honestly, that's what brings me to, and tell me if it's just my problem, and I'll step away. But in this nation, with our distrust in the federal government that lies to us every day, and I just don't want to feel lied to by the board. We have had tax problems. We have had these problems for over 5 years, and we've been paying tax attorneys. And what are they doing? And why has it come to the point that we've known about this for 5 years, and all of a sudden we have to close the store to work it out? I just...
Would you like me to answer that?
Go right ahead, Bill.
I would like to share with you that the advice that has been given by volunteer tax people working with the association in the past has been at the end of the year, when these clubs are filling out their CR7 forms, end of year statements, right? What was being calculated and what was being reported to the IRS was net income. Net. And so the money...
our tax attorney doesn't look at this? Our paid tax attorney?
Do we have one?
Well, that's what he said.
We're consulting with one now that we realize we have this issue. But as we were processing all of our accounting documents when it comes to the clubs, net revenue was being calculated. We're not the only, believe me, we're not the only one watching this on television at this point in time. Sun City Grand, Sun City West, and a lot of other issues, our associations like us are dealing with this same problem. So what I'm like to say is that once we had light shined on us that this answer is written in the gross revenue, so all of the money that came into the village store that is being processed, and we take the 16% as per rule or policy, and the checks have then been sent back to the club in bulk. And the clubs are then, and therefore, responsible for paying each artisan whatever their value of their product was worth, minus whatever the club took out, was what was being processed at the end of the year. Net revenue. The IRS concerns itself with gross revenue. And that was brought to our attention, and that is why we're here today, dealing with the fact that we want to be able to play by the rules. The fact that we've been flying under the IRS radar for this long, I can't answer that, but now knowing what the rules say, it's probably a good idea to abide by them.
Okay, I understand, and I completely agree with that, but I guess my question is, Sun City West has a tax attorney, correct? Somebody who is that, do we have a tax attorney? You say you're consulting one. All the money in this town and we don't have a tax attorney?
We do have an attorney who represents us as the association, and underneath his umbrella, he has not only a tax attorney, he also has a water attorney, alcohol attorney, and part of our COVID thing. All of them are underneath his umbrella, and that's who we go to for our reference on that. Do we have somebody who is sitting in our office here? No. Okay? Because don't forget, we're not talking about all our clubs. A majority of clubs are 501c7s, and they're perfectly fine. Okay? A majority of the other ones that are out there not a majority, a very small minority, need to have their things adjusted by their gross revenue because they're in violation. Did we know this was happening? When it was brought to our attention, like Bill said, that's why we're here. Okay? If we were going to talk about blame...
No, I'm not talking about blame. I'm just trying to understand the workings.
We're trying to understand.
Please, I mean no disrespect. I'm trying to understand. I'm a newer resident to Sun City West, so I'm trying to understand how we do things. But the question, I guess, that comes from that, so not all clubs have this issue. No. So I guess another question I had was why can't the store remain open for clubs that don't have the 501c7 issue? And I'm guessing it's for clubs that sell higher priced items.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Again, and if you don't mind me reiterating, there was the person was just up here. You have a small group, 90 people. Their group is $10 a head. $940 is what the IRS looks as their gross revenue. At that point,
Right.
35% can come from their sales. Okay? Out of that 35%, 15% of that number, okay, can come from outside sales. Now, when you take 35 down to the 15, you're talking if you sold 2 items for $20, you're in violation.
Mhm.
That's, again, it's a process that we have to look at and know that where we're going is going to be in compliance going down the road. It's not just in compliance for the club, but it also is compliance for the association side. It's the bigger umbrella on top of that too. Because if they're in violation, would we be in violation too, Bill? And I'm going to get Harry. Harry, if one's in, the other one's in violation too. Is that a head or not? And you're talking of a person who's coming on the board with the credentials of being a former IRS agent and auditor. So I can also, I know I have somebody else in the audience, Anita DeGumbia, who is the same way. This is one of the problems we're faced with. We're seeing it here, and it can escalate up. And what we're having to do here is to do the overall protection of the association.
Right.
So,
Okay, so the one thing I just have to say,
Okay,
I know my time's up, I see that, but my realtor brought me here. This is how I knew I was a goner, and I was going to end up in Sun City West when
Thank
they
you.
took me to the store.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Linda Rush,
Hi, Linda.
and I am the president of Toy-Key Silvercraft.
Okay.
I'm also on the board of Lapidary. So I think that you have answered most of my questions.
Okay.
I think very clearly, so we know which way we have to go, or at least experiment on which way we want to go. But there are 2 things I really like to ask you. Number one, is there any reason why you couldn't given us a little bit more notice?
Bill, it was just it was brought to our attention basically at the beginning of February when we
Okay.
were filing.
Okay.
So when you talk about us reacting to it, February, March, we're at the beginning of April. We're moving as quickly as we possibly can. And this is the old thing, and I use the old analogy of a broken finger. Nobody plans to break their finger, but when we break it, we want it fixed right away. And that's where we're at.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And my second one, I'm doing this because I heard from many, many people a rumor that I want you guys to put to rest. And you have for me that you've said you want to open the club again, but they've asked me many times, well, they just want the room to put offices in. So will you please put that rumor to rest?
Which rumor?
They want, the rumor is that you want the village store space to put offices in.
We always evaluate space 24/7. There is no current plan as I sit here of anything being changed in there. If the village store does not remain in that spot, will the space be used for something else? Obviously, yes. Whether it's, and I'll use your Toyco Silver. Did I say that right? I got
Yes, you did.
lucky. If Toyco Silver, if half your room was being not used,
Right.
or whatever, and the equipment was taken out of there, would it be used for something else? Probably.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just
The room,
passing on.
We understand that there was ladies chit chat out there.
That's what I wanted to put to rest.
Thank you.
And it was good for you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Laurie Brammer, 132175. Excuse me, Bill, you used the term brief timeout a couple times, but the village store is going to be closed May, June, July, you said all summer, August. So that's already 4 months of a 12-month year. And I understand you don't know what you're going to find as you start talking more and digging deeper with the tax attorneys. And I'm a creative type, thank God, and not an accountant or tax person. But how can you today be using that word brief timeout? Because it's a little frightening. It sounds like it could extend. I mean, just listening to some of the discussions about master plans, which seem even, well, let me rephrase it. You know, this could take a life of its own, dealing with the government and the IRS and a board and everything else. How are we assured that it is a brief timeout?
I can assure you that that is our intent, and that's really the path we're going down. Again, the assemblance of this committee, hopefully with people in this room involved who have a vested interest in moving this thing forward, will do so, and we'll get there as quickly as we know how, and reopen the facility. That's what we're after, and that's what we hope to do. Now, again, when this was presented in an executive session in early March, we were dealing with a lot of things that really didn't pertain to the club scenario. It was primarily the big hitters when it came to advertising and those types of things, particularly when it came to the $950,000 request coming down the line from pickleball in this year's capital budget request for future look, as well as the greenhouse. So we started there. And again, it was peeling back the onion and peeling back the onion and continuing to peel back the onion until we figured out we got to get to the core of this. And that took a little bit of time. We apologize for that. The fact that KDV is retiring in April, that's her call, right? And we are trying to move forward to do the best we can to support the store, but do it appropriately when it comes to IRS tax code. And so I can't give you a date right now as to when we're going to reopen. Our intent is as soon as we can. And again, we're going to continue to support the big craft sales, which is the vast producer of revenue when it comes to our annual sales. The spring sale and the fall sale are huge. Looking at Katie's numbers, that's where those dollars are generated. Yes, there's monthly sales. I get that as well. And we'll try to we'll get an answer to that as soon as we can. But again, we just want to make sure via tax code and via our attorney that we are doing the right thing. I don't want to jeopardize any of the clubs.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my second question, because you also use the word rest assured that the village store will open again. But it sounds, and again, I don't understand anything. I have somebody else do my taxes. I don't want to bother with it. But it sounds rather grave to me. If this 35% rule, if that's the rule, the IRS isn't going to change.
No.
We're going to have to change what we do.
You need to change the club's tax status.
Oh, okay. So that could be a simple remedy.
Well,
We're
and
open.
again, to that point, it's simple in our minds because it's simple. We change it from A to B, but there are steps along the way that we have to make sure we do, and that's why we're engaging with our attorney accordingly. Is it a process? I will, Harry, I'm going to call on you. I'm sorry to say this. Does anything happen with the government quick?
If you got 4 years.
You've got 40 years. But again, the idea is that it's a problem that we have and we need to fix it.
Okay.
Okay. Whether we like the outcome or whether we like the discussion about it or not, it's a problem that has to get fixed.
Mm-hmm. But the potential possible solution is changing the tax.
There's right now, if with the committee there's probably a number of.
Just real quick, try to answer that as quickly as I can. Your non-exempt tax status is 501c7 social club. Essentially, you're not a social club. You're a cottage industry. So if you're selling product, the government basically wants tax on that. You're no longer exempt from paying tax. Why would you be? You're a business.
And we've been paying tax all along anyway.
Some. In their world. Say sales tax, but not federal income tax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet Teagarden, number 114429. And I think you just answered my question, because I was wondering, out of all these 501c whatevers, why do we have to be a C7? Is there another option by which we could operate the way we want to? We obviously can't operate the way we want to as a C7.
are there some other options, other C whatevers that we could be?
We don't believe you can tax-free, but you can operate.
Thank you.
Follow up.
I'm sorry. You're up on this subject already. When everybody else is done, we may come back to you. I apologize for that. Okay.
Good morning, directors. Mr. Schwinn. George, my PIN number is, is this situation being brought forth due to an audit by the IRS, or are we being preemptive knowing it's highly likely we will be audited?
I'm hoping not highly likely comes into play, but it has been brought to our attention.
By council?
Actually by another club and by another accountant.
Okay.
And so once the light got shined on this program, the fiduciary responsibility that's basically encompassing our association needs to be addressed. And that unfortunately lands on my shoulders, so here I am.
We're doing our best to be proactive about this. So
Absolutely. That's good to hear. The other question I have is, because we're now aware of the situation, aware of the possibility of an audit, and it could become a regressive audit for numerous years on the clubs, is it wise to continue the sales, even if they're pop-ups or at their facilities, knowing that we're putting these clubs even further in the ditch in regards to having to pay federal taxes?
Hence the closure of the store. Time out.
Yeah.
Until we get the appropriate feedback back from the tax attorney, as well as feedback from the clubs as to how they want to continue. But really, it's just a matter of getting the ducks in the line so we can then educate the clubs as far as the appropriate steps they need to take to drop the 501c7 status and become a little bit more of an independent operational organization and handle their own revenues and tax liabilities.
But because as an association and as a community, we're now aware of this, any sales that would take place after today, we would either be putting the community or the clubs at jeopardy, because if the IRS were to become involved, then they would say, you knew, you continued with the process anyway. That could change how favorably or unfavorably they view us.
Right. And so we're not recommending that happens, but I mean, for instance, I don't even want to go there, but anybody picks up their supplies or empties out their garage and has a garage sale, that's a whole nother animal there. Or they pick up their things, go to Wickenburg and sell it in a flea market. Okay, that has nothing to do with me.
Are there any sales planned on rec center property after today?
Metal shop, I think, Riley?
Yep, metal shop. Quite a few clubs are going to be having sales upcoming.
So we're trying to wrap this up as.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Steele, 74074. I'm president of the Quilt Club, and as you know, our big quilt show was canceled this year, and we're doing it next year, which we generate a lot of income. So I'm just hoping you're going to resolve this as soon as possible so I can tell our members, because we have over 200 members that have been sewing up a storm with this pandemic, and we have more things to sell than we know what to do with. So as soon as this is resolved, we'd like to know, because this is really going to affect our club.
Very good. Thank you. And by the way, some of the most beautiful things that come out of there. Next, please.
Hi, thank you, board. I'm Shay Wright. I'm an officer in the Clay Club, and I also belong to Glass and Rip and Sew, and I bowl. So that's the other thing. The question I have is just a very example. I take two pieces of 12 by 12 glass. One costs 12, the other costs 18. I fuse them together. I put them into the kiln. I've got $30 in that glass. I sell it at the village store for $35. I've lost money by the time that I have paid. My question is, should the clubs start taking and tallying the cost that they're having for what they're making? I know Silvercraft is another one. They spend so much money on their silver. Okay, they sell it, and this is reported as income to the clubs, but yet we've already put maybe 80% of the money in ourselves. So how can this be, yeah, thank you. How can we balance this, or is this something maybe we need to change, that we need to start keeping track of what we're spending for a certain product? And if we put 30 in and it's sold by 40 and the village store takes 5 and the clubs take 3, we're only making 2, but to the income it's being reported as 40.
Mm-hmm. And that is an argument you need to take up with the Internal Revenue Service. What we're trying, because it's really, the nonprofit status of the club is not whether or not you make money or not, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how can that total income, isn't there some way that we can balance that off, that instead of saying this club made $40, that they only made $10 because of the cost of the product to begin with?
Yeah, I'm just the bearer of bad news today, but this is really, I'm just conveying IRS rule. And so they're focusing on, they don't really care how much you spent on your equipment or anything else. They're concerned focusing on revenue, gross revenue.
Is that because we're the status?
Yes.
I mean, because we're not a business. A business can write off that.
Absolutely.
But nonprofits can't.
Hello.
Correct.
Hi, my name is Lynn Vergowan, 122750. I just have a couple of quick questions. In your heads, in your minds, do you have an estimated time that it will take before the village store opens?
I can't circle a date. I really don't.
I'm
month?
not asking you to. I'm asking for a ballpark estimated time.
Month and a half?
Okay, that quickly.
I think so.
Okay, great. And then my next question, can you commit to a November craft fair?
Yes,
Wonderful.
I think so. I think we'll get there.
Okay, great. My next question,
Well, let me throw COVID out there.
I
If we-
understand, fear of COVID. I
All
think
right.
that's assumed. I'm taking it now that the clubs are going to have to reestablish their tax statuses and become businesses. Bottom line. Yeah, okay. So we should be careful on our sales right now until this is cleared up.
I would, but I mean, it's been 40 years under the radar, right? I don't think the IRS is looming about to come after, a rip and sew club. They have bigger fish to fry. That's all good. But if they do, it's just, we are doing this on a preactive basis, knowing what we know now, doing the right thing in their eyes, I think will help.
I guess my next question, to be quick, why didn't you close the village store immediately?
Excuse me?
Why didn't you close the village store immediately when you were aware of the issue?
Because we really didn't know what was going on. When we made this presentation to the executive board back in March, the presentation that was displayed here today stopped at the club level, because we basically told the village store, the governing board at that point in time, we have issues and they are at the attorneys and I don't have any answers for you right now.
Okay.
So we kept going until here we are. We get a little more feedback back from them. And again, peeling back the onion, where here we are.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Oh, no, not you. It's all good. I know, it's good.
Good morning, guys. I'm
Good morning.
Kathy Teedy. I'm former president of the Palo Verde Patchers. Just one question. You have given us the opportunity to be, effective May 1st, to go ahead and sell on our own. Can we, as a group, go into our club room, each of us have our own table and set up and collect our own monies individually? That way we would not involve our clubs but we ourselves would be responsible for that monies that came up? Or are we pushing?
Pushing that, I think,
Okay.
because if it was your house, yeah. If it's your garage, yes.
Yes.
But you're using association of facilities, and I
That's
think
what we're
that we're just intermingling there, and that's problematic.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what we need.
This is the last.
Did I do something to offend you?
No, not at all. No.
Sorry.
No, we're going to go for a break after this.
Right. Cottage industries, are they going to be allowed by you guys?
That is a question that's in the tax attorney's hands.
And
Thank
if
you.
the village store was closed, I'm assuming that all of the revenue that's so extraordinary is done by the crafters, and that's why the village store was singled out? Or are you shutting down all the other revenue makers? Because you're not saying who is the most, you refuse to say who are the people
I'm
who
sorry,
are
I
direct.
don't understand the question.
Okay. You're saying a small group of people are the ones that have the problem. You won't say characterize that small group of people. Are they all crafters? Are they all craft clubs that you see this potential problem?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was why the village store was the appropriate thing to do. That's all you needed to say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. And then,
I'm sticking.
yeah, I know.
I know.
Oh, are you going to have attorney at future decision-making about club stuff? You can't hear me? Are you going to have the attorney in the future being able to get the information from these meetings?
Yeah, what we do is when we get something from the attorney, it comes through us and it goes out as a press release.
So they know ahead of time, they can tell us, okay,
Right.
gotcha. And so you are going to change the bylaws to allow cottage business. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
I thought I was last. What's up? How you doing?
Peggy Sue Kruger, 134623. Question about the upcoming craft fairs. Because it's not going to be going through the rec centers anymore, do you recommend that each of the clubs establish themselves now so that they can be able to be involved in these fairs? If we do a fall craft fair.
Yes. The answer right now is I believe you all have EIN numbers. You all have individual club checkbooks.
Right.
That's step one.
Because it's going to take a while. Do you recommend them to establish this status?
Yes. And as soon as we get feedback from the attorney, those step-by-step process will be spelled out depending on the direction that we get legally as far as how we need to move forward. So
Perfect.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, come on, hurry up. We have people who are waiting. Their back teeth are singing anchors away.
I've got a Starbucks calling me, so it's going to be quick. Kathy Griffiths, and my question is, if you're going to be hopefully having our fall sale, when are you going to put an advertisement out for the replacement so this person can come on board with all these changes, so we start with the right rules and the right person at the right time?
Again, that's a recruiting process with HR, but again, we need to get our step-by-step program established with this subcommittee so that we as a board and a group can come together again and formalize this process as far as us moving forward. And as soon as that takes place, off we go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
With
Thank you for all the information.
By the way, don't forget your recreation number on that piece of paper. At this point, it is now 11:03. We're going to take a 10-minute recess for everybody to have whatever they need to do. We'll re-adjourn at.
George,
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
And I'm sorry.
I just want to make one statement. Someone said just a moment ago when they were leaving the podium, and changes will be made to the bylaws.
No.
No, bylaws require a vote in our community, and I want to make sure that that's stricken from the record.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll re-adjourn in 10 minutes. That's why at least there ain't running water, of course.
Got a doctor's appointment at 1. Hey, George, remember I'm leaving at 12.
Yeah, there's, I got it, thank you. Thank you. Hopefully it's we. Good morning, everybody. If the directors will please take their places. Thank you. We'll reconvene the meeting. Once again, directors, I have been reminded by Martin, please turn your microphones on when you're going to speak, please. Okay. Moving back to our agenda. By the way, thank you for your discussions on this, and thank you for your input. I think the 501c7 thing is not answered in full, but it is 95% of the way there. I think the presentation was absolutely wonderful, and there's a lot of information out there, and there was a lot of misinformation out there that was about that. The other thing is we're going to go to 3.07, capital expenditures of 50. This is a Q&A. If there's anything on there, I have Carl and Pete here to answer any questions that may be on this once again. Board, is there any other questions about this? I'm doing this every meeting just because if something crops up, you can ask the question before we go for a vote in there. Any comments or questions about any Q&A about the 50K plus from the board? Hearing none from the audience? I like this part of the meeting. Okay, that's good. The next one down there will be the budget plan with the 5-year assessment. Pete, I'm just going to get you to nod your head on this one. The budget was adjusted with the removal of the pickleball excursion on there. And when you look at the 5-year, if you pull this up now and as you go along, those numbers will change going out in not next year, but the years after, only because he updates it as different cost factors come involved. So if you see that changing, that's a normal part of the process, not just the regular part of it right now. Are there any comments or questions about our budget for the 5-year, current budget and budget 5-year plan? Directors?
I have no comments.
Lou, please just wave at me because I can barely see you. Thank you, Lou. Go right ahead. Lou.
Well, I've worked with Pete, and the 5-year plan's solid. I support it.
Thank you.
No questions.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions about this? Come on up to the microphone and have your say, please. Okay. That's all right. Please, whatever. You're coming up there, make sure your rec number and your name are posted on the sheet there. You have 2 minutes. I'm sorry, Ann. That is next on my list. It is in there. The budget forums are both on, I think, on the 14th and the 15th. One is at 5:30 in the evening for all those who continue to work, and the other one is during the daytime. They're both going to be held here in the social hall, and they will be chaired by Mr. Schwinn and Mr. Finelli. They're open to the public for all discussions that goes along with the budget, not only the current year budget, but the 50K plus plans that are out there. Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
My name is Jerry Gothier, and my number is 131390. The question I have is, that piece of paper that was just up there, that budget.
Yes.
Is that available to everybody?
Yes, it's online.
It's online, okay.
Absolutely.
Then the second thing I don't understand is this 900,000 that the pickleball wanted to expand their thing. That's the question about that is, where does that money come from?
That is what the whole discussion that we had of the 501c7 came out. They're out there fundraising in excess of their amount that they're allowed to do by the IRS. They get it from advertising, from tournaments, from different events that they have, from sales. And we know that that's inappropriate according to the IRS code of what they are. So that's where it comes from. I don't know if I answered that question.
Well, the other gentleman that was that had the presentation earlier.
You mean Bill, right here?
Bill, yeah. Okay, Bill. That 900,000, I thought it was, there was a comment made that they want to borrow that 900,000 for 15 years. Where does that 900,000 come from?
Pete is our chief financial officer.
Okay.
Well, all of the board members, I think in particular, have heard a lot about reserve and replacement planning and the funding for that over the last years. And during my 2 years here, there's a common acronym that we reference. It's called the percentage of fully funded balance, percentage of repair and replacement. But ours is kind of a big cauldron of dollars, which means that those funds not only do the R&R, but it also does new capital funding. And it's that second one that you're referencing. It's called the new capital for, I know we're referencing 960,000, but the very conservative estimate for a pickleball expansion would be in the $1.5 million range, probably at best. The funding of which would be potentially coming from the clubs as their portion of paying it. That was all before these discussions started to emerge on the IRS issues. The funding for any and all projects, R&R or new capital, are all going to come out of that cauldron. And so the minute that you expend $1.5 million, you're going to depress that funding percentage that we have. And I didn't reference it earlier, but we're in about the mid 50% range. The governing board last year approved a floor of no less than 40%. And just numerically, that's about $5 million of buffer, if you will. So if you do move into the form of expending big capital items like this, the way that our current structure is, then we would have issues with starting to approach that floor. Thus, this was what generated all this conversation about how can we offset that? How can the clubs offset that? And the expenditure out the door is going to still be at the point of the funding. And if you remember, Mr. Schwind identified that what recourse would you have if the pickleball folks said, just kidding, you don't really have the funds, or COVID hit like it did this year. They weren't able to raise hardly anything in their tournaments and things
Hang
like
on,
that.
Pete. Let me, in order to, you still have a pretty confused look on your eyes here. Let me try to.
I'm getting there.
Okay, let me just try to quickly summarize. We have approximately $23 million cash reserve.
Okay.
That is applied to a lot of capital improvement projects, repair and replacements and whatnot that we've got basically scheduled for the next 30 years.
Okay.
And then we have an operating budget. I think that's what you're looking at there. Or is that capital? I can't see. I don't have my glasses.
Hold right there. I want to pop in with a question now.
Go ahead.
So that 23 million that you've got as a capital reserve, is that coming out of my $400 a year to belong to the recreational clubs?
Some.
Does that also involve the $3,500 ante up when I bought a house?
Yes.
Okay. So that seed money keeps going up whenever the buy and sell process goes on and the people partake in the $400 a month or a year. Does any of that money happen to offset the member dues of the $400 a year?
Yes, a huge portion of that. So break this down. If you were in a small HOA, forget a big rec center like this, and you paid $100 a month. Most HOAs, if you even care to look at their financials, most of them put $15 to $20 on average across the industry towards repairing and replacing the little park or any common areas like that.
Sure.
We just do it on a broader scale of 1,200 different line items and golf courses, and the numbers get into the tens of millions of dollars.
Sure.
So our funding for replacing the repair and replacement portion comes from three main functions. The first and most predominant one is this association in 2001 initiated an asset preservation fee. So anybody, a new transaction or particularly a new house sale would go towards funding the R&R. And that's now developed into almost 70% It's not on this slide, but 70% of our R&R funds comes from that APF. So 1,200 or so sales a year helps generate $4.1 million of the approximately $6 million of capital needs.
That's your
Second
35.
biggest one.
That's your 3,500.
Okay.
That's the 3,500. The second one is any interest dividends that we earn on those funds go directly and stay within those funds. That's only about 5 to 10%. And the last part kind of takes you back to the HOA is your 497 here at the end of the year, that $1.4 million that we're proposing for our budget will, by policy, go into the reserve fund. So a portion of your $497, and just to numerically put it that, it's $1.5 million divided by 30,000 members, about $50 a year. Yeah, $50 a year goes towards the R&R. So only about 10% of your dues, when normally in an HOA it's as much as 15 or 20% in most places.
Great answers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do I need to write it down here?
Yeah, this way we can find out where. And I'm only kidding you.
Okay.
Listen, I'm just really thrilled that our owner members are asking questions about where our dollars are. And one of the great things about our association is that there is a monthly openness of our profit and loss statements and our income statements every month that we publish in the paper. And that's one of the highlights that was noted of why we're number 2 in the country. We are very, very, very open about our finances.
Richard Baker, 126293. Do you have a guideline as far as capital expenditures, how that compared to your annual depreciation, P&L?
So there are two components to that answer. There's the actual depreciation. Some people get very confused on this, so good question. Depreciation means when you purchased the asset, you are giving it a life, and that's established by what's called the generally accepted accounting practices, GAAP. Yep. And they have every type of piece of equipment or property or building, and those are all amortized over those guidelines. So piece of equipment could be 5 years, and $10,000 piece of equipment, $2,000 a year hits our depreciation expense. Where a lot of people get confused is on the reserve study is an estimate for future spend. And yes, a lot of those components are capital related, but what we do is we then assign a life, a replacement date, and a current cost of what all those 1,200 line items are going to be individually need to be replaced at a future date. And so that's why it's a fluid document. Every time we get, some change in the lifing, every change in the cost structure, the fully funded balance per need could change. And so, answer your question, the GAAP dictates how much we actually depreciate by that. That's our standard.
Yeah, my question really was, do you start with the gross amount of your annual depreciation, and that becomes a starting point plus or minus for your annual capital?
No.
For cash purposes?
No, actually, that is where the reserve study is a tool, and it's a tool for which the beginning point of our capital process. So all these items, 1,200 line items, go out as sometimes as much as 100 years for wells or concretes and things like that. But let's just say it on a more organic level, 100, 150 line items that you see identified in this year come forward through the reserve study. And then we don't just carte blanche check box and say we're going to present it to the governing board. We line by line each individual item and say, does it have the need? If not, we displace it back a year.
I hope that answers your question. I think
not really, but
well,
okay.
if I can jump in on this one very quickly, we have a 30-year outlook, okay, for what our capital expenditures would be to replace our equipment, right, and or our structures or anything else that goes along with that. and that is updated each year as it goes out with a life expectancy. The depreciation obviously is depreciation of the life of the asset. What we look at on the reserve study is the replacement of that asset in future money, not in current money.
When you talk about reserves, you're talking what, cash?
Well, we have it in cash investments or things like that. But yeah, as far as an accountant would be, it would be considered a cash account, yeah.
I mean, if you spend more in capital in any given year than your depreciation, your cash is going to go down.
And that's why we have,
Vice versa.
that's why they have a floating reserve study, and we'll use as an example. Okay. This year, we have a small portion of the Grandview Golf project going on, okay? Next year is a larger portion of it, and it'll take the reserve dollars that are planned for it to reduce them down, but in the years coming up there, it builds it right back up based on what we have in there. Because you can't say that I'm going to have, let's just say, a $5 million expenditure that I'm going to lay out for a parking lot this year, just as an example. And I can't say that I'm going to piece that out in $500,000 for 10 years and get that done. That's how the reserve tells us in this year we're going to need that money, and that's what we plan for.
Yeah. Okay. One detailed question. With all the golf carts being stolen, is there anything in the capital budget for added cameras?
For cameras?
Yeah. Security cameras, see who's stealing golf carts.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking, I thought I heard golf carts. I'm sorry.
No, I did. I mean, there's a lot of golf carts that have been stolen, you know, from the parking lot here over by the swimming pool. Are there any added security cameras in the
that's,
capital budget?
There is a line item for security and safety in there. Yes.
Okay. All right. Final question.
Just to be crystal clear, that wouldn't ever qualify as a capital item. To keep our depreciation schedule from being literally tens of thousands of line items, we mute that by the policy within our association. If it's not $5,000 or have an estimated life of 5 years, we put it into our operating expense. So you don't go looking for it on there. It's
understood, but I mean, you could buy $50,000 worth of cameras and put them all around, right?
Who's watching them? Yeah.
We could. My final question: when I first moved here, in the paper there was a balance sheet always published. Is that available anywhere now?
Yeah, every month.
The financial statements, as published, include that. I'm almost certain. So go to the website.
There's a balance sheet online somewhere. I can
yes,
find?
It is.
Income statement, all that stuff's online.
Yeah, the financial statements. I'll come to my office and I'll show you exactly, how to, or somebody in our media with Katie. But it's on the website, and I think you do have to click one thing out the toolbar at the top to then get to the financial statements. When you click on those, all the
P&L and balance sheet.
The income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flows, the
If you check page 6 of the Rec Center News every month, it'll have that financial information, and it'll also have the link to the website where you can get the full financial reports.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, just for those listening in public, and this is a taped conversation, we do not have a $5 million parking lot planned for anywhere.
That is correct. That was an example. Did I say example? Okay, it was an example. Okay. Any other questions about the budgets? Hearing none, we'll move on. Proposed calendar meetings. You'll see on there, this is for Sharon, directors going forward, and staff. Please, if you have any changes or ability to help with our calendar, we are still working on space. Please make yourself available to Karen ASAP about what your needs would be going forward. Okay, with that, I'm going on to comments, board comments. Don, I'm going to start with you.
Great job, thank you.
Not me. Roberta? Sharon?
I just have one question. When you are looking at the under $50,000 budget, per se, where exactly do you find all of those items, and how are they actually, where does the money come from? If it doesn't, does it go to the budget and finance?
I need to understand the under 50, you mean?
Yes, under 50,000.
Under 50,000 is at the discretion of the general manager.
Right,
That's
so we
part
don't
of
know
his.
what those are,
You. I'm sorry, I'm getting no's. Okay. I'm sorry, Pete, go right ahead.
okay. So every line line item is in there, including the under 50,000? That's all I'm asking.
That's the whole budget, yes.
And we don't have any conversation, I understand, about that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so then in regards to Sue's $30,000, I'd still like to know what we're using it for $30,000. If everything's coming back to the board before we did anything, why are we giving $30,000 to a committee? I don't
I'm sorry, Bill, go right ahead.
When the conversation, excuse me, Sharon, when the conversation was brought up relative to the Arts Commission, we didn't know really at that time what the scope of this board was going to be. And as that has formulated and has been translated to us and whatnot, there are potential items that could come into play relative to any recommendation brought forward via the committee up through the other committee process and ultimately to the governing board to maybe move forward on. So as a bit of a contingency, and the fact that some of these art projects that may come forward could be possibly funded via grant money or other things like that, I, as a general manager, I've inserted $30,000 as a bit of a contingency, not guaranteed to spend in any way, but if the governing board decides to move forward with an art project and some capital, or not capital, but some operating money is needed to advance this thing, there's money there to do it. So it's built on a contingency based on not knowing.
Thank you. I just wanted to know how it was determined.
Lou?
To say I'm overwhelmed is an understatement.
That's okay, Lou.
So at this point, I do want to thank Ann for permitting me to be on the Budget and Finance Committee. The question that Sharon just asked, and I don't know whether she was at that meeting or not, everything over and under 50 was identified and reviewed by Budget and Finance. I can contribute that much. Other than that, thank you, and I have no further comments.
Thank you, Lou. Jim Young, anything you want to say today?
No comment.
Thank you. Bob? Sue?
No comments.
Audience, this was the director's comments. There's a remote question by Mary, and Mary, I know you're listening. What is your question and comment was forwarded to Bill, and when he gets back to his office, he will answer you directly on that. Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Any more? Hearing none, the president has the last say. That's the last thing that I have. I want to just personally thank each one of the board members here for the hard work that they do. Directors-elect, thank you for being here. Staff, Bill, Katie, all that. One of the other things that I really want to talk about, and I cannot express how important the COVID staff was and their task force that was here that turned every Thursday when the governor changed his idea to what went on and how we're ready to hit the road running on Monday. It is imperative to say thank you to that. That task force did us a great job, and that's really all I got to say on that one. Our next meeting will be, I have to turn my paper over. Oh my goodness. Our next workshop is May 7th, which will be here. Our next regular governing board meeting is April 22nd, right here. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.